The Fantasy Six-Pack Hour. With your hosts, Joe Bond.
You're awful.
And A.J. Applegarth.
It's Sin-Shu Chu. It's a mouthful.
All right. Welcome to the Fantasy Six-Pack Hour. My name is Joe Bond, founder of FantasySixPack.net. With me, as always, my co-host, AJ Applegarth. What is up, man?
What's going on? Ready to get this thing going?
Yeah, and we are, for the first time ever, we are live. I think we're still having some slight technical difficulties, but it's hopefully getting better. The audio and visuals, hopefully our windows won't be resizing halfway through the show like they did last week. But yeah, it's looking good so far. But yeah, I'm excited to get into this, see what our first live show does for us, and it's rock and roll, man. So let's do some news and notes to start here. First, man, let's start with baseball. Dude, I have no idea. Like, when I wrote these notes 2 days ago, right, it was Manfred said that, you know, he was 100% sold that there was going to be a season. And then, like, the next day he came out and said, well, I'm not so sure anymore. Like, just done with this. Now it's him and the MLBPA manager, or whatever you call him.
Players Union.
They met, the Players Union rep, like, they met, and apparently, like, Manfred thought there was a deal that they like agreed upon verbally or whatever, but apparently not. So who knows now? It sounds better. It's up from the 50-ish games up to 60-ish. Like, we don't know. Like, I guess the players still want more, obviously. Sounds like they're getting closer. I don't know. What's your thoughts on the likelihood that we have a season?
Blow it up. Just awesome. I'm over it. Like, I figure it out for next year, because we're going to be going through the same crap next year as it is with the re-upping of the season then. So I just think it's time to either get it going or don't. Like, stop talking about it and bitching about it and whatever. Both of you, as in two sides, are just greedy. So if you can't come to an agreement, fine, scrap it, and then you have 10 months to figure it out.
Hopefully, yeah. I would not be totally opposed to not having a baseball season this year, only because I'm like neck deep into football, and I don't really want to go back to having to try to figure out how to write some baseball content right now. It's been off my mind for a while. Not only that, but like, I literally have no idea how to run. All my fantasy baseball leagues that I like run myself are head-to-head leagues. I have no idea how to run a head-to-head league with 60 games, because those include playoff weeks. I don't know what to do.
You can't. I mean, there's no way you're going to have like 8 weeks, if that, of a regular season. And you could go on a run in a regular length season for 8 straight weeks, one way or the other, and either completely tank your season or completely pull it out of the depths and become playoff relevant. It's too short of a season. I just don't think it's worth even doing as far as head to head. You'd have to do it roto. Or season-long total points or something like that. That's about it.
Yeah, I'm really not sure what to do. My first thought here is my very first thought on how to do this would to be like to play like 2 or 3 opponents every week. Right? And so that way it kind of gives you more of a head-to-head record, right? Like, yeah, it kind of sucks if you have to play 3 players when Mike Trout gets hurt for 2 weeks, but so be it. Like, everybody's in the same boat, right? But at least that way you get more games under your belt instead of 6 to 8. Like, if you do, like, you win a win-loss record if you win the week or lose the week, right? Instead of the total, like the total like categories, right? Then you're looking at like a 6-0 record. Or 3-3 record. That's crazy to me.
I just don't see it. I just don't see it working out.
Yeah, there's
someone's going to bitch about it and complain because, like you said, they're going to have a great player that's got injured for maybe just a standard, IL stint, but they're playing 6 teams. It's like the guy's injured for 6 weeks. So, yeah, I don't see it making sense at this point.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on here. We do have some football news. The Philadelphia Eagles lineman got hurt this week. Blanking on his name right now. I didn't write down the note, unfortunately. So he's out. I mean, what are you thinking that does for that team? You know, Wentz and Sanders, obviously hot commodities. As a Philly fan, what are you thinking there?
Yeah, it's definitely a loss. But having Brooks out, I think my guess is they could just try to go back and see what Jason Peters is doing, because I don't believe he's signed with anybody yet. I mean,
We'll see what happens.
Still another year older, but I mean, the line's solid as it is. And last year, they were so good because they were healthy all year. And now here we go again, where they're already missing a piece. So it's definitely a big blow. I don't think it crushes their value too much, though, personally.
Yeah, and then obviously Zeke got the coronavirus. I mean, is any worry this far out from the start of the season? I mean, with stuff we don't know about, really, right? I mean, it's kind of tough. So,
yes, no, I don't know. I mean, it depends. I mean, I feel like there's a ton of older people that have really fallen victim to it and not had great outcomes. There's some younger people that have fallen victim to it and had not great outcomes, and vice versa. So I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I would drop him down maybe a spot or two if I was doing early drafts or something, but I still think he'll be all right overall.
Yeah, I'm not super concerned there. So, all right, man. Well, let's move on to our beer of the week. Oh, we're working on this one. All right. Well, I'll just start. We're missing our sound effect, but I don't want to drag it on. Oh, I think he's got it. You want to do it?
Beer.
There, we got it. All right. So I'm drinking a Kushwa Face Chop. It is 8.2%. It is brewed with Citra, and get this, more Citra. So a lot of Citra. It's good though, man. A New England double IPA. I gave this one a 4.5. Man, I love this beer. It is phenomenal. So I definitely recommend it if you can find it.
Awesome. I myself picked up a few different new brews tonight. One being the DC Brow On the Wings of Armageddon Imperial IPA. It's a 9.2%er. Definitely heavier. It's got a little bit more of a pretty heavy malty taste to it, but it's good. I'll probably give it a 4.25 at least.
Nice, man. I'll check that one out too. All right, well, let's jump into things. We're going to start our division previews tonight, starting with the AFC East. And to help us with that, we've got Eric Edholm from Yahoo Sports. Eric, you there?
I am indeed. What's happening, fellas?
Hello. Welcome.
Hey, welcome. Glad to have you on board. And we got a lot to cover, so I say we just jump into things, man.
Let's do it.
All right, so first and foremost, we've got like our hot question for the division for each one. And for this one, you got to talk about Tom Brady leaving, right? So Tom Brady's gone. Is it finally time for somebody else to win this division, or can the Patriots still do it without Tom Brady?
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot all offseason, and it was just the way that Belichick seemed to kind of let Brady twist in the wind a little bit and play his options out and look around. I mean, he didn't show any urgency then, which says maybe something about Brady. And he certainly didn't show a lot of urgency in free agency or in the draft to get another quarterback. That doesn't sort of tell you that there's something to Jarrett Stidham, right? I mean, he sort of believes in the kid. I don't think you count on Brian Hoyer to come in and win you 11 games. So, assuming Stidham wins the job, they still have a defense. They have some young guys on offense who could get better. Am I betting against them? No. Do I feel like the Bills have more momentum and they could be a young team on the rise capable of beating them? Absolutely. So that's probably the one team in the division that I would feel most comfortable picking over New England this year.
Yeah, fair enough. AJ, anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I agree that Hoyer is definitely not somebody that you want to try to rely on. So, give the reins over to Stidham here and see what he can do. And he still has a decent amount of talented weapons to deal with. So we'll get into them here as well.
Yeah, so let's just jump right into it, man. We're going to go position by position, break down, we'll run through ADP, we'll do some questions, and just try to get to as many of these guys as possible. So starting with quarterbacks, we've got Josh Allen, top of the list here. Pretty wide margin for ADP. He is QB 7. Sam Darnold, QB 22. We got Tua at 27, Stidham at 31, and Fitzpatrick at 33. Again, like Josh Allen is really the only quarterback being widely drafted, and as he should be. So I want to know, though, speaking of Josh Allen, can he return that value this year, Eric? I mean, he was drafted a lot later last year, and he really returned value and then some. But QB 7's, that's pretty tough.
Yeah, I mean, you're counting on another 8 or 9 rushing touchdowns, basically, I would say. I mean, obviously, you think Stefon Diggs is going to add to the offense, add a little punch to the receiving game. They did have some drop passes last year. You would think Dawson Knox in year 2, offensive line being better, a little bit more diverse run game. It's all going to help him out, but you're still, he could take steps forward as a passer and be a quote-unquote better quarterback and get 4 rushing touchdowns this year and not meet up to that lofty number right there. I would, he's going to come up short if he doesn't get those opportunities. And the question you ask yourself, and if I'm thinking about Allen, is how, having seen, so this is a group that came from Carolina, a lot of guys in the front office who are Panthers guys who were there when Cam Newton was drafted. Cam had a lot of rushing touchdowns, a lot of short yardage situations when he was in Carolina his first 2 years. And I think it was around year 3, check me if I'm wrong, where they started kind of not letting him get beat up on those types of plays as much. So does that frighten me a little? Yeah. And Allen's, been hot and cold as a passer too. So
yeah,
that one I'm just, a little bit leery of, even though he's clearly got a lot of ability.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hot when he's bombing it 70 yards down the field and gets a completion for a touchdown. So,
well, and he runs an extra 80 for a touchdown too. That helps. But the 50-something% completion percentage is not helping his case at all. I feel like that's gonna come. That's really gonna hurt him sooner rather than later. People are this is not gonna work. So,
yeah, I agree. So, aside from Allen, then, are you even willing to take any of the other quarterbacks in this division as far as a non-super flex or 2 quarterback league, maybe as like a backup or anything?
Yeah, I mean, Stidham would be a fascinating, late round flyer if you want to put 2 quarterbacks on your roster. Some guys do, some don't, obviously, whatever. But, I mean, he has a little bit of running ability. He's not a scrambler, but like Garoppolo when he was there, he could pick up first downs, occasional touchdown. He's got enough arm talent there. I'm not wild about New England's weapons, So, but there's something about him that it's interesting to me, and at that value where you might be, you're probably gonna be able to get him with your last pick if you want to go that route. It's hard for me to believe that he's not going to play his way into, the top 20 or so fantasy quarterback positions. So I don't know. I just have a feeling. I mean, Darnold would be the other gamble that you would say, okay, assuming he's healthy, he's going to start all 16. They get the tight end back. They get Bell back. They get a few other pieces back. There's clearly some unmet potential with him, but Stidham, I think you could get cheaper and maybe end up getting a little bit more from.
Okay, Joe, any of these other guys you like?
I feel like I'm staying away from the Miami situation. We haven't talked about that just because, look, I think especially with this weird offseason we're going to have, Fitzpatrick is going to start, but who knows when they're just going to be like, we're 2-8. let's put in Tua, right? Like, and at that point, like, who cares? You don't want Fitz. They're not going to put Fitz back in like they did last year. That's just not going to happen. Darnold's the guy I kind of like. I've always thought the talent is there for him, and he has shown flashes where he's been amazing. I feel like, was it 2 years ago? He like finished the season as like a top 6 quarterback or something like that. I'd have to go look that back up, but like he was amazing the last like 3 weeks of the season or something like that. Stidham's, I'm just not sure. Like, I mean, when Belichick believes in you, I guess fine, but I don't know.
Right.
We've seen it work before, right? With Brady, obviously, but I don't know. And it always seems to be whoever starts back there for them just seems to do well enough to make it work. But I'm still probably just staying away from them, and it's a wait and see for all those guys. There's other guys that I think you can get as a backup QB, even in single QB leagues, that I'd have a lot more faith in. So,
yeah, I agree.
So before we move on to running backs, Eric, you got any other final thoughts about this QB group here?
Yeah, I mean, with Tua, I think like you guys said, there's such an enticing upside, and that if they play as competitively down, at the start of the year the way they did down the stretch, maybe he doesn't see the field right away. But if they do struggle, as you pointed out, if they're 2-8 or whatever, or 2-8, I should say.
Nice.
Yeah, rim shot, Jeff. Get that sound effect going. But no, I mean, depending on the parameters of your league, is it a keeper group? Is it?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Quarterback league.
Yeah.
Then you start asking yourself, how early do I go? How much faith do I have in him playing and being an effective quarterback this year? I guess would be the question.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
so move on to the running back side here. So again, we're looking at ADP, and we broke this out in a half point per reception rankings for the ADP. So you got Lev Bell sitting at 18. You got Singletary at 21. Sonny Michel 31. Granted, he is recovering from this foot surgery from May, but sounds like everything I've read, it sounds like it's all maintenance related. Yet it's still unclear if he's going to start the season on the PUP list or not. You got new to the division, Matt Breida with Miami. James White, we obviously know about. Jordan Howard is new to Miami as well. And then rookie Zach Moss. So let's stick with Buffalo there. I mean, what do you make of this situation? Singletary was such a popular pick before the draft.
Right.
But now that Moss is in town, Singletary's ADP has dropped down a little bit. I mean, do you think people are overreacting? Is Moss a real threat?
It's a fascinating question. I mean, I can tell you this. I think Buffalo was very excited about Devin Singletary going into last year, coming out of last season. I think they had to feel good about what they saw. From a fantasy perspective, don't think he scored a lot, but the yardage was good, and you would assume that if, like what we talked about earlier, Allen doesn't get as many goal line touches, someone in that backfield is going to score. The feeling I got talking to them this year prior to the draft was that, they were going to add a running back most likely at some point, either somewhere in the, first 7 rounds or as a priority free agent. But it wasn't a position that they were going in saying, we got to have someone on day 1 or day 2.
Yeah.
They just loved Zach Moss. They had too high a grade on him to let him go. So that begs the question, is there room for both guys in this year's offense? Is Moss healthy? Because he's had a litany of injuries in college. If he is, to me, he's a better player than Devin Singletary. I like Devin Singletary. I love a healthy Zach Moss. But I don't know how that affects 2020 either. I wouldn't be shocked if Singletary runs the way he did down the stretch. It's hard to really go away from that. So I'm a little ambivalent about that whole situation just because, I could see it kind of going both ways or tilting at some point during the season.
Yeah. Joe, any thoughts on Buffalo's situation?
Yeah, it's one of those ones. It is really hard to judge. You hit it right on the head there. I mean, I have Pro Football Focus's draft guide up here, and they actually listed Zach Moss as the most elusive back, which And they actually ranked him number 2 at the position. It's crazy. Like their ranking of him is much higher than I think a lot of people had him.
Yeah.
But it's telling. I mean, you can't go wrong with Pro Football Focus, right? I mean, they're legit. But I don't know. Like I just kind of feel like he is still of a little bit of just he's gonna fill that Frank Gore role. I mean, and Singletary did fine with Gore there. Obviously, later in the year, Gore slowed down, and Singletary had fresher legs. So yeah, we saw him take off. I'm just not sure of them, man. Like I do really feel like they are closer in ADP or they should be closer in ADP than they are. I don't think I'm going anywhere near Singletary in the top 25, top 30. Right. I'll probably have them closer to like where you see the 2 Dolphins go, like, early 30s. Yeah. Just because you never know. And I mean, yeah, one's going to just blow up, but I would probably take Singletary more than Moss just because he is a little more proven talent. That'd be all I have to say about it.
And if I had to guess right now, I would say Singletary would get more touches. I think what Buffalo ideally would love to have is a healthy Zach Moss. Like, let's not overwhelm this kid right away, especially this offseason. Remember back in 2011, the lockout year where there was no offseason, there were a ton of soft tissue injuries that year. There were a ton of Achilles sprains that year.
It's bad.
So, like, injury-prone guys were super vulnerable, and regular people who are usually in the lineup every week were more vulnerable than normal. So I would think that portends more of a Singletary workload this year.
Yeah, I agree. The lack of an all season is really going to impact a lot of people. This especially the rookies and stuff, or people coming off of injury that needed this time to like get back in time with tuning with their teammates and things like that. So it's really going to hurt them. But
yeah, I think it's going to be. It's really up to every player to see what they're doing as far as their own conditioning, and they don't necessarily have coaches and training staff right at their disposal, maybe on some Zoom calls, but it's not the same. And you look at all the other sports that were canceled, that were in progress, basketball, all that, these people just stopped playing the game. Football is obviously a different story there, but I still think it's going to be it could be a heavy injury year. I wouldn't be surprised to see that.
No doubt. All right, let's move on here to the Jets. And Le'Veon Bell is really the only running back there you want anything to do with. Last year he was really just a volume guy. Like, not a lot to love there with the actual performance that he had, but he caught a ton of balls. So in PPR, you loved him still. So you were fine with it, but everybody wants more from him. Are we going to get a little bit of a bounce back from Le'Veon Bell in year 2 with the Jets?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think he's still only 28 years old. As many carries he's had as, he missed the entire season in 2018. Pretty quiet last year. Part of me wants to say, sure, absolutely. He was a game-changing talent. He was like a generational back, but we've also seen backs kind of, the drop-off is pretty precipitous, right? I mean, it can happen for a guy who had 1,500 touches his first, 5 seasons in the league, or whatever that number was. It was more than that, probably, actually. Closer to 2,000, I would think, because he had 2017, he had a ton. So he had to be pushing, something around 2,000 if you include his final year at Michigan State, where he would carry the ball 400 plus times. So, we're coming up on like 3,000 touches after this season. So I'm just saying, like, that's
it adds up.
Workload for a 32-year-old or something. So
yeah,
I'm a little, I don't know. I really wouldn't touch either him or Gore, but they do have better offensive line. Tight end should be better. I mean, I could see an uptick. I don't think I'm going to highly endorse him this year or anything like that.
I mean, do you think the ADP at, 18 is okay
18.
still?
Oh, good question. What did he end up last year? I mean, would he have like 800 rush yards and
Last year, he had 789 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, but he caught 66 for 461 and a touch. So, I mean, still nothing compared to his Pittsburgh days, but
right.
I mean,
so that puts him at like
okay.
RB 20 something, I would think.
I mean, he's pretty much spot on exactly where he finished last year. So,
yeah.
And you're adding the rookies on because everybody's drafting the rookies on top of him, including, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and stuff like that. So,
yeah. It's close. I don't know that I would go much higher than that.
Yeah, and you got to think that he had so much value as a receiver. I mean, I don't know if that's going to repeat this year or not. So that's something to worry me a little bit. I've never been a huge Lev Bell fan since the holdout, but I mean, if he puts up points and he falls at the right spot, maybe I'll take a chance on him. But
he finished RB 16 in PPR last year.
Okay, in PPR,
so he's dropped a little bit. Basically, it's all the rookies jumping him and stuff like that. So
I mean, and somebody's got to catch passes, right? I mean, it's Herman, Crowder, Mims, Herndon. I mean, there's just not a ton of guys out there that you're saying, oh, we got to feed this guy the ball or he's going to get 120. So
yeah,
there's still something there in those reception leagues.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody's buying into like the Michael P. Ryan. I mean, people like him as a talent, but I don't think he's going to be anything to like take a lot away from Bell.
Yeah.
They signed Frank Gore, so
right.
Yeah, let's do it.
Frank Gore's played for every team in that division now, except for the Patriots.
Yeah, for New England, that's right. Yeah.
It's interesting, but all right. Anyway, AJ, you want to move on here?
Yeah. Let's jump in. Speaking of the Patriots. The Goreless Patriots. So are these running backs being undervalued? Sonny Michel had 247 rushing attempts last year. I mean, that's got to hold some kind of value, right?
Yeah. I think so. I mean, the thing with Sonny Michel, having owned him in one of my leagues that I'm sort of most personally invested in last year, it was a very disappointing season. You saw that playoff run where you thought, okay, he's sort of turning the corner when they won the Super Bowl. Just never happened last year. There were certain games where he just wasn't, they'd have him on the field the first 2 series and then you wouldn't see him till the second half. So their usage for years, as you guys know, has befuddled the masses. It's really hard to predict. I will say that there's a little bit of quiet undercurrent of buzz for Damian Harris. And if you look at Belichick's history, there have been a couple of guys, the receiving back who was from Cal, who went to the Giants, and I'm blanking on his name right now. He kind of disappeared from the league. Didn't do a lot.
Best?
Say it again. No, the Patriots had him. Oh my gosh, I'm just totally blanking.
Brandon Bolden?
No. A couple years ago, I'll
Jonas
come up with
Gray.
Oh man, Jonas Gray.
I don't dig that team. Yeah. No. They've had a couple guys where they basically just sat their rookie year, and you didn't hear much from them, and you thought, I even like this guy, and then all of a sudden they kind of use him in year 2. But Belichick loves Burkhead. He's still got James White. It's a confusing situation. So I want to like Sonny Michel. He looks nothing like he did in college. It's the most bizarre thing. Like all that burst he had at Georgia, we just haven't seen it. I don't think he's got a 40-yard play from scrimmage in 2 seasons. So, yeah, if he's healthy, I'm interested. But otherwise,
we don't know now.
Maybe thinking about Harris a little bit. Maybe reconsidering White later on.
Yeah. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, with the Pats here, there are always guys that I stay away from, except for James White. I mean, I feel like with Stidham there, like maybe they'll just have a bunch of little dump down passes, unless they want to take the leash off of Stidham, which I'm not sold that they're going to do. That hasn't been their offense in years. In Dynasty, I'm still interested in Damian Harris. So again, back to they like the guy in year 2 type of thing. So that's that's a guy that I'm still semi interested in just to see what they do, because I liked him a lot coming into last year, and then it was like, did he do something wrong? Like, what happened? They just didn't use him. So who knows?
Yeah.
Shane Vereen was the name I was trying to come up with.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Golly.
Okay. Yeah.
All right,
I just
throw back there.
I just pulled up California Bears running backs, and
that's right.
I just hadn't scrolled down that far. And they've had a lot of good ones, but they've all done nothing in the NFL except for Lynch.
Yep.
Man, everybody remember Justin Forsett for a year? That was fun. Anyway, moving on.
All right. So you're gonna hit us up with the Dolphins?
Yeah. So you know what? The running backs in this division are kind of are really interesting, just because the team, like, there's just not a clear like top 2, top 3, whatever. So we're gonna hit on all the teams for the running backs, which we are not gonna do for any of the other positions. But Dolphins, they signed Jordan Howard, right? So everybody's like, all right, I guess this is Howard's role. You know, he's nothing sexy. Nobody really likes him, but hey, when he's got the top job, he's been okay. Yep. But then they traded for Matt Breida. And I'll tell you, I love Matt Breida from a talent standpoint, and what he did in San Francisco when he got opportunities, those games where he got a lot of touches, he crushed it. What is your thoughts behind this backfield? Like, who's the one to own?
Yeah, I think of the two, like Jordan Howard. It's funny because you described it perfectly. When they got their touches, they're volume runners, right? Like, and most guys are like that. But you know, you see an Alexander Madison who can get 8 carries and still give you a pretty productive game for that. You know, those guys aren't that. And the Bears figure that out. Nagy's first year. You know, the Eagles kind of figure that out too. He sort of needs that diet to get going a little bit. And, you know, most offenses aren't really set up that way. So of the two, I guess the fact that they sort of saw an opportunity to get Breida for probably less than it was worth, and they want to be this sort of ground and pound play action offense, you know, I would guess that he's a little bit more attractive. But, you know, like you said, Jordan Howard's like just good enough to remind you that, you know, he can still play, but week to week, what are you getting? I don't know.
Yeah, I think the big concern for me with Breida is the injury history. And as we were just talking about, you know, this isn't the year to really want to stockpile a bunch of, you know, past injury guys. You can't even really say, well, it could help because he's got Howard there and, you know, they'll share the load. Well, San Fran had how many running backs sharing the load? 15, I guess it was. Right. So, you know, I don't think that really matters too much. As long as they can utilize them in the right ways, hopefully he can stay healthy, stay on the field, and help the team. But of the two, I think I like Howard a little bit more. I mean, he's still young. You know, he just had 1 year with the Eagles and really didn't get a chance to shine there, I don't feel like, because of his own injuries too. But he's a good runner. I know his stats have kind of fallen off each year. But granted, he was playing with the Bears, so could have explained a few things there. But I'm probably not going to own many of these guys, you know. But of the two, I think I would lean a little more towards Howard.
And Howard's got the touchdown production. You know what I mean? The thing with Breida is that, you know, it's been really spottier. So I understand the argument.
Yeah. So, all right. I guess that moves us on to receiver there. You want to start us off on the
let's keep moving along here, man. Receivers. So ADP wise, we've got Stefon Diggs, newcomer in Buffalo, wide receiver 24. Parker right behind him at 25. Julian Edelman 34. John Brown 37. Then Jamison Crowder at 49. Preston Williams, Dynasty Darling, 50. N'Keal Harry, last year's Dynasty Darling, 63. And then Brashard Perryman, 64. Those are the guys that I listed. There's obviously more, but don't think we really need to hear about the other guys who aren't hardly going to get drafted. So let's jump right in here. DeVante Parker, a guy that a lot of people, including myself, disowned last year, and for good reason, because his first few years were super disappointing, but just blew up and finished wide receiver 7. Yet he's still going ADP 25. And by the way, that wide receiver 7 was half point PPR. We are using half point PPR for our ADP pool. So, I mean, is he being undervalued here, or was last year just, was the outlier?
I mean, I think, had a career high in yards in the final 8 games last year. So, you know what I mean? Like, his production in the last half of the season,
yes,
I think was better than anything he had done in a full season prior to that. It's hard to realize, too, he's heading into his 6th year in the league. I mean, this dude's been around for a minute, and we just hadn't seen anything from him. So is there a little bit of a fright factor that it was just Fitzpatrick throwing the ball to whoever he thought had a chance? Yes, but we also have to think about the Adam Gase factor. Like, the dude actively disliked Parker. He
dislikes any good player, doesn't he?
Yeah. If you're talented and you're on Adam Gase's roster, there's a good chance you're a doctor. So I just felt like there was almost like a personal agenda against him. That was just, this guy was, unrefined. But once he figured it out, you saw some real ability there. And so, I felt like he was getting 10 balls thrown his way every single game last year. Is that going to go away? I mean, I don't think so. So I don't know. I'm really fascinated to see what he does this year, and especially with the potential of a quarterback change. But, there's no reason to think that he can't. If he'd have doubled up his second half of last year, we're talking about a 1,600-yard year. So match 1,200 again shouldn't be that hard, I don't think.
The one thing I think about where you mentioned how he blew up in the second half of the season, Preston Williams was not there that part of the season. So Preston Williams was doing awesome. And I mean, Parker was still doing good and better than he had been in years past. But I wonder if with a hopeful, fully healthy Preston Williams for the entire season, if we could get even 3/4 of what we got of Parker last year. And I'm not sure I buy into it. And maybe that's where the ADP drop comes from, because everybody's just worried about it. Right.
And I mean, there's still people who believe in Albert Wilson. Like, they even on that team who think he can be a valuable piece. I mean, it's like there's still an identity crisis with this team, and who's as good as they showed, what roles they're going to fill. I'm leery, but there's talent in all those guys.
I think you mentioned a good point there, Joe, that Preston Williams was the go-to when he was healthy. He gets injured, and then Parker, they finally realize, oh, well, shit, okay, this guy's got a lot of potential and can play ball too.
Yep. And they stopped Josh Rosen from playing, so they just threw Fitz in there. Fitz just likes to throw the ball 60 times a game. So
and that's fine.
Fitz doesn't care at all. He's like, oh, you have 3 inches of space? Yeah, I'm gonna throw the ball anyway.
It's likely I might get it intercepted. It's also likely that you will catch it. Let's try it. So, all right. Well, speaking of the Buffalo team here, we got Diggs. We kind of mentioned him a couple of times earlier here. So, what can we expect from Diggs now that he's in Buffalo and potentially happier?
Yeah, I mean, they gave a lot to get him, and it surprised me a little bit only from one regard, which was they already had a couple of sort of smaller, quicker receivers, so I thought that was the only curious element of it. But I'm a big Stefon Diggs fan. He seemed to be a little bit kind of off his focus last year at one point, but they're saying good things about him in Minnesota now that he's got. I mean, you know what I mean? It's not one of those. There was something else at play or whatever. I think there was just a little bit of tension there with the play calling, with Cousins, with everything else, with Mike Zimmer at times. I mean, he was a big touchdown producer the prior 2 years, and I think he fell off a little bit last year. I can't recall the numbers off the top of my head, but, he's not your typical small guy. I mean, he's a speed guy, but he's also a short, quick guy as well. He finds his way into the end zone. That's an exciting prospect for a player of his size. And so, there might be a little bit of a chemistry building experiment there with Allen. Kirk Cousins wasn't exactly the most accurate pinpoint guy either. So that's the only fascinating sort of element. Is he going from, one similar type of accuracy thrower to another one? But they are going to give him the ball, and his targets are going to go up from what he saw last year when that number was shockingly low, I think.
Yeah. So my feeling on Diggs here is that his overall, I'll say this, his consistency is going to drop. We've mentioned this when we talked about Allen early on, and his completion percentage is awful. You mentioned Kirk Cousins, by the way. We're talking 69%, 67%, 64%, 70%, 69%. His completion percentage is not bad. It seems like it is because he just misses badly. He misses when he misses badly, and usually it's like a pick or something.
Right.
But overall, he's pretty solid. The one thing that's really going to help Diggs is that Josh Allen has the deep ball that Kirk does not. And when that lands, I mean, AJ alluded to it earlier, that's a 70-yard touchdown. That's going to make your whole fantasy. You don't care what else Diggs does. That made your whole day. You know, that's a 13-point, 14-point play right there. Right.
And the one thing last year, too, that I noticed when I watched the Vikings, they tried to get Diggs deep a lot. He did catch some balls downfield. I mean, I think he averaged a healthy yards per catch. He just didn't have as many grabs last year. So they did go after him downfield last year. I think that was, it was all short stuff that really beefed up Cousins' passing numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. So yards per reception for Diggs was at a career high, easily 17.9. It's just 94 targets, caught 63 of them. It's not a fantastic rate, but I think it's okay. But yeah, it's just one of those things where Kirk's game is not downfield, not anymore. So Allen still can do that, although he's not as accurate. I mean, he's never broken 60. He's never been above. Last year was a 58. The year before was 52. So, hey, maybe he breaks 60. If he can get to 62, 63, maybe we see a huge year from Diggs. But I'm betting we'll get some gaudy stat weeks from him, but it's going to be pretty inconsistent.
Yeah, Matthew Stafford's the only guy I can recall who made a big jump completion percentage-wise, like his first to his second year, and then I think his second to his third year, where I think there were sizable gains. So it's hard to expect another big leap from him. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, it's all good. I was done.
Yeah, I think the one nice thing to look at too is, his percentage, Allen, has been down, but he hasn't had a receiver like Diggs in his career yet either. So, I mean, nothing against Brown and Beasley. I think those guys are very solid players and productive. But Diggs is just he's on a different level. So I think it'll be interesting to see what he can do. So that's my thought on Diggs, at least.
Yeah,
I like him.
So the last guy I want to talk about is Brashard Perryman, and ADP is really low, but I wonder if he's being super overvalued. I mean, we saw what he did at the end of last year with Tampa when Mike Evans and Godwin were hurt. Thank you. Jeez, I feel stupid for that one. Thank you. So Godwin were hurt, right? But there's not much in New York, right? It's Crowder, who's not even close to running the same routes as Perriman. They brought in Mims. Yeah, that's not gonna. Again, rookie receivers, I don't really buy them all that much. But Is Perryman a little undervalued in your book based off the finish he had last week? He finally flashed.
Yeah, he could be. I mean, he's really, really interesting. I'm always a little bit leery of a guy who's on his 4th team in his 5th NFL season, like having any kind of confidence in him. Like, teams don't really give up on first round picks, especially the Ravens as quickly as they did. But it was clear once he moved on, there was some ability that was worth kind of harnessing. But it did take, I was surprised the Jets chose him as their deep option instead of just keeping Robbie Anderson for a few more bucks. So, if he steps right into that role, it could be superb value. Does he still frighten me a little bit? Yes. Is he a volume guy? No. You're counting on 2 or 3 shots a game or whatever.
Right.
I mean, he had that one. Was it who was he playing? The Lions? He just went. No. It was that Christmas game. No, it was like that. That pre-Christmas game against the. It was like a Saturday game against the Texans. I mean, he looked uncoverable.
Yeah.
So, I was trying to remember the game where I saw him go nuts, but that was it was one of those 2 games where he was incredible, and you thought, well, there's that first round ability. Now he's heading into year 5 or whatever. The role itself is enticing. You're going to get probably 6-7 touchdowns, 800 yards, something like that. I mean, at that level, I think you can probably get him at a bargain.
It actually was the Detroit game, the 5 for 113 and 3 touchdown game. Good call on that.
I think the next game was the Texans game, if I recall. I remember him having.
But he got 7 for 102, but no touch. But that's still phenomenal.
Yeah, still solid.
The end of the season there was him was just ridiculous. I mean, they had nobody else to throw to, and of course Winston was just throwing it as much as he could. Although it didn't help. His first 3 passes every game was an interception. 2 of them returned for a touchdown. So I don't know. I'm probably not going to have a lot of Perryman this year. If I get him in 1 or 2 spots, fine. I'll take a chance on him late because he is going late. I just don't really because I'm with you, man. Like guys that broke out for like a 3-game stretch because there was nobody else on that team. I'm not buying a whole lot into. So I'm right there with the ADP on that one. What do you think, AJ?
I think he's interesting because he's kind of, he's one of those like 2018 Damian Williams players where he gets the opportunity late and he blows up in the fantasy playoffs and just wins you a championship. So, it'll be interesting to see if it can carry over, obviously with a different team, different setup, different quarterback. So I do like him later on. I think he does have some ability, and I just think Baltimore, they just aren't a pass-heavy team. So they never really gave him enough of an opportunity to really shine, in my opinion, because of the way their schemes are. So if they gave him another year, maybe he could have broken out there, and he'd still be there. But, maybe not. So, all right. We got any other thoughts here on receivers or good for tight ends?
I'm good with whatever you guys want.
All right.
Let's finish up here with some tight ends then.
Yeah.
AJ, take it away.
So we got ADP again. We got Gesicki from the Dolphins as tight end 15. Again, half point PPR or half PPR. Chris Herndon's sitting at 29, and Dawson Knox is at 30. Mm. So can Gesicki build off of his late season run and kind of keep going with that?
Yeah, I mean, another super gifted athlete. I mean, I don't know if you guys see the video this offseason. He throws the ball over the house and catches it. I mean, search that one out after the show. It was pretty good. And the word on him when I talked to somebody there during training camp his rookie year, so I guess 2 years ago, whatever. And they just said he was lost. Like, it was the blocking schemes were new to him. The routes were different. He was just lost. But they said a year later, talked to the same guy who said night and day. Like, he just looked like a different player. And you saw it on the field, right? I mean, he caught a high percentage of the ball thrown at him. Started getting in the end zone, I think, by the end of the year. the
Yeah, he
plays
did.
downfield. It was exciting. It was like, all right, this is the guy. So same things we talked about with Parker and Williams. Like, there's a little bit of question about the quarterback deal, but I love that, that they were looking for him in that New England game when they went up there and won last year. The shootout when they were blowing the chance of the number one pick there, like he was the man in that game from what I remember. I think he's got a piece in this offense. I think they realize, let's not ask this dude to block. Let's get him out of space.
Yeah.
The way the Noah Fant and the other move tight ends around the league do.
I totally agree. I'm a huge Gesicki fan. I loved him coming out of college. Like, my wife's a Penn State fan, so we watch a lot of Penn State games. And like when he got drafted, I was like, yes, like I want him. Drafted him in a couple rookie drafts in dynasty leagues, late second. So I was so happy to get him. And then the year one was like, oh man. But I can't. People were like, people were trying to send me trades, and I just bought. I was like, I'm gonna give him a chance. And I'm so glad I did. I am super excited to see how he progresses into year 3 here. That end of the year, as AJ knows. I beat him in our championship game with Gesicki. He had Fitzpatrick in week 16, who threw a bunch of touchdown
4
passes.
touchdowns,
and
I think
like
3 of them went to Gesicki.
It was pretty nasty. So I was super excited for that.
Because you had Winston in that week.
Oh, yeah,
that
Winston.
was the 3 straight, pick 6 interceptions or
Yes,
whatever.
Yes, it was.
It was.
So, yeah,
I was
not
looking
awesome.
at him like, okay, this could be good, and then it's
Could
like,
work
I got
out pretty
Fitz.
well for me.
Damn
Yeah.
it, he's got Gesicki.
Yeah, they all kept going to Gesicki, so I was super happy about that. But yeah, so I agree. Like, again, they've got some weapons on that offense, especially in the passing game with Parker and Wilson, not Wilson, Williams. Thank you. So, but again, as long as the coaching staff finally figures out, don't let him block. That's a big thing. Like, he's not a blocker. This is not his game. You said it. Like, I 100% agree with you there. So, so the rest of these tight ends, though, man, like, they're not great. The only other guy that sort of interests me is, Chris Herndon coming into last year, pre-suspension, pre-injuries, right? Was a hot commodity, like, especially dynasty. People wanted him. Like, this guy was going to be the next big tight end, right? Then he just, he had the suspension. He came back for a couple games. Nothing happened. Then he got injured. Now everybody just wants nothing to do with him. I mean, but is he still good? Like, I don't really know what to think about him at this point. 'Cause everybody's off of him, but I still kind of like him.
Yeah, I mean, young guy. We're talking about a 24-year-old kid. I mean, I think he's going to be a piece of that offense, for all the same reasons we talked about with the other Jets guys. But, I guess I am just a little bit shocked that there hasn't been, again, I don't really chart this stuff the way you guys might in the offseason, but hearing this now, this shocks me, to realize that, that he's not getting any attention last year. I mean, Ryan Griffin, isn't that good a player to me? No. The guy who ended up starting, I think, almost all their games at tight end last year. And he still, found his way to, 5 or 6 touchdowns. So, I mean, there was, the role that he could handle. And Herndon, I think, can handle 20% more of that or whatever. So, yeah, I don't know what Griffin's final numbers were, but I just know that they used him a little bit and had a role for him. And I think Herndon would have expanded that by quite a bit. So,
yeah.
I mean, his rookie year, and tight ends usually don't do anything their rookie year. His rookie year was good. 39 receptions, 502 yards, and 4 touchdowns.
Yep.
You do that your rookie year, you've got my attention for a tight end.
Yep.
I mean, that's basically around a little bit above Griffin's reception total. One more, or how many touchdowns did he have rookie year? 5?
Herndon?
Same thing.
4 or 5, something like that.
Yeah. So 1 less touchdown, but 500 yards compared to 320 last year for Griffin. And Griffin's 30 years old. I mean, so
Griffin's
not that
he's
a guy.
he's he's what he is. I mean, exactly.
Yeah, Herndon will be 25. He's the guy to own there to me. I think he's more talented. He's more explosive. It's just one of those. Yeah, it's what have you done for me lately, right? It's recency bias. I even hear people saying that, that Herndon's not the one to own, that Ryan Griffin is, and I'm like, no, come on, not even close.
Who are you talking to?
Yeah. I see it on Twitter, dude. I see these like random people. Yeah, I don't know if these are like hot take people just trying to be Collinsworth. I don't know what's going on here.
His best game was Week 11 against none other than the Redskins, where he went 5 for 109 and a touchdown.
Let me hide my Redskins helmet back here for that one. Not
he had a 45-yarder though, so that's and it was probably the touchdown. I don't recall, but I mean that's where it was. Everything else is 50 or below. One other game above 50 yards. So, I think he was more of a commodity because they needed to throw the ball to somebody, and Herndon wasn't there. So
yeah, pretty much. So, all right. Any other thoughts on these tight ends? I mean, we got Dawson Knox. We got the New England guys who are both rookies. I mean, any interest in these guys? And are they being severely underrated? Knox sort of interests me, but ADP is so low. I was kind of shocked, honestly.
What was Dox's number again?
30.
Wow. He's worth more than that, in my opinion. Like,
yeah,
he'll
be a streamer.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. The fact that they were sort of using him down the stretch and they felt a little more comfortable with him. I mean, that carries some weight in my mind. But he's definitely still. I think he had to finish higher than that last year. I mean, he had 2 or 3 touchdowns and 30, 40 grabs or whatever it was. He was pretty good. I mean, he wasn't great, but pretty good for a guy who didn't score a touchdown between the time he left high school and got to the NFL. 0 TDs at Ole Miss. I thought he had a terrific rookie year, so he was a lot more efficient than I thought he might be.
Yeah, he actually did finish right at 30. Is
that right?
50 targets, 28 receptions, 388 yards. Only 2 touchdowns, but
is that it? Okay,
that's okay. I mean, still, it's 2 more than he had all through college. So, I do like Knox. I think he's interesting. I had him in a dynasty league, and then I ended up flipping him just to clear up taxi space. But other than that,
I guess with Diggs there now, though, you gotta wonder, like, he's gonna lose target share.
Yeah, probably, but maybe they hold him in a little bit more to block for Moss, keep him fresher. Yeah. I don't know. He's still young though. Dude's 23. I think he's got plenty of room to grow.
Yep.
Cool. All right, man. Well, that is all we've got. This was a great talk. A lot of good information, Eric. Appreciate you coming on. Why don't you let everybody know where they can find your stuff and on Twitter and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I do a lot of draft stuff, but this time of year, and obviously given the conditions, I'm doing a little bit of everything over at Yahoo Sports. So head to sports.yahoo.com. Check me out on Twitter, Eric with a C _Edholm, EDHOLM. And I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. We threw you the follows. This was Jeff, our new podcast producer. Like he knew you, I guess, from back in the day, and so he recommended reaching out to you. So it was a great idea. So much appreciated, Jeff, for that. And so we gave you the follow on Twitter ourselves, and so good stuff, man. We're looking forward to it. So all right, have a good night, man.
Talk to you guys soon. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Eric. Have a good one.
All right, AJ. So that's all I've got. So next week, we're going to be bringing on our NFC. I believe we're doing North. So, Ravens, Pittsburgh, Bears, or Browns, Bengals. Talking too fast. So we got all those teams. A lot of interesting players there, of course. We got all the guys on the Steelers coming back from injury. We got Lamar coming off his huge season. We got the Ravens running backs who obviously became a little more jumbled this year than the past. So very, very interesting conversations to have. We do not have a guest lined up yet, but I'm getting one soon, I hope. So we will be there soon with that, and I will preview that. Hope you guys enjoyed the live streams on Twitter / Periscope, YouTube, Twitch. Go ahead and check that out. We'll be doing that every week. Hopefully it looked good, sounded good. Let us know, man. I appreciate feedback from everybody to make this thing better. It will be published on YouTube right after this ends. I believe the live feed just goes, published immediately. But we'll be putting it on Anchor, which goes out to like iTunes and all that kind of stuff later tonight. And you can check it out later if you didn't catch it live. So, got anything else to add, man?
Good.
I know I just talked a lot there. Sorry. Got to represent. So.
All
right, man. That's it. And we will see you later.
All right.